Welcome to Past Life, Present Power with Derek Jameson. This is episode 6, and on this week's episode, we meet with Jessica Hoover, who's a singer, songwriter, and producer. She's written songs for The Weeknd, for Sam Smith, and Timbaland. Now, she's here to tell us about her past lives, and this one's going to be amazing. We go really far out there to look at how music plays a role in her life. She also tells us about her depression and how she overcame those depressions with past life therapy. We also get to hear about being on the Titanic. Yes. So this one is a juicy one. I cannot wait for you guys to hear about this. So join us now on Past Life, Present Power. Hey Jess, how are you doing today?
Hi, Derek. I'm wonderful.
Amazing. I know that you just got off a flight today and we're doing this. Do you feel like you're rested? Do you feel like you're on the go?
I did. And not only did I have a flight this morning, I also just got done with grief therapy. So I am rolling in it. I am ready to go. I'm in that
Perfect.
space.
That's perfect because I mean, when we talk about past lives and past life therapy, it really is a healing therapy or a healing experience on different levels. It's exciting, it's fun, but it's also a healing experience. So I think we're right in the right pocket for it right now. Well, I do want you to tell us a little bit about yourself so the people that haven't met you get to know you, what you do, where you're from, and I'll let you take it away from there.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm Jessica Hoover. It's my nice full professional name. My friends call me Jess, and you're more than welcome to call me Jess too. And I'm a singer-songwriter in the music industry, and I was a very successful ghostwriter for several years. And I loved doing that, got to work with several top 40 artists, and then transitioned into being a music producer and songwriter. And I love what I do. I love the artists I get to work with. Many exciting things coming up. So that is primarily what I do. I'm just fully embedded in the music industry.
You know what's so exciting with this is the first time it occurred to me for some weird reason that when you said it this time, I saw all of these past life connections you have to all of the people that you're working with.
Really?
Yeah, like I didn't even think about that beforehand, but what was occurring to me was like, oh, she writes for artists who are very well known, whose messages get across the entire world and influence people and change people's lives or entertain them or, every kind of aspect of it, make them emotional. And then I was like, oh, that is an Akashic agreement in itself. Like there's no way you would have a hand in that if you didn't have a soul agreement with these people that you're working with, writing for, co-creating with. And it's funny that literally just occurred to me after all this time.
Oh my gosh. That makes
That's
me feel very light and happy.
well, I'm glad, and that takes me back to that whole idea of fulfilling purpose, and it sounds like you are fulfilling yours by creating art and bringing frequency of sound through your own voice, bringing information through lyrics, so that people can express themselves and people can receive the messages that you're here to bring, and I think that's pretty powerful.
Thank you. And it took a long time for me to accept that and accept that this is a good thing. And also, there's a lot of trial and error too. There are some songs out there that I wrote for artists that I'm like, ugh, I spread that message. Like, okay. But then there's ones that are like, you know what? It doesn't always have to be, sometimes it can be fun and just whatever, a little jazzy. But, it just the last couple of years, really, it's accepting. Wow. Even if no one knows my name, there are so many things that I've been able to be a part of and touch, and I'm just so grateful for that. So grateful for every song that I've been able to write, that people respond to, and I get to creep on Reddit posts and things that people write about the songs and how they really feel about them, and it's very rewarding, very very
Yeah.
exciting.
And you make a good point of saying, oh, there's some things I've heard that I've written that like that you're like, oh, I'm spreading that message. But that's part of the process, don't you think?
Yes, because I mean, some of those songs, I was writing when I was 19, 23, when big things were going on and big attitudes and big drama in my life. And I was just processing through it. It was all a part of processing. And that's how I do it. I write songs. That's how I, you know, process through a lot of any sort of trauma or good things, happy things, wonderful things. Everything is through song for me.
And, people at the time where you were at, there were people at that space that needed it too. Everything is vibrational resonance. So wherever you are at, there are others who will resonate with that and need to hear that for whatever that they have to process as well. So even that, where we think that something that we have done in the past wasn't our best and highest, is not necessarily, we're being judgmental on ourselves rather than looking at it for it being part of the becoming of who we're becoming, because we can't necessarily see or appreciate the full spectrum if we can't look at that part of us too. So it's really cool to hear you bring that up and us reflect on that
Yes. I
now.
Thanks to you, thanks to your help opening this up for me a little over a year ago. It was like June of last year, I think. We did the sessions.
Yeah. And now you're experiencing old women spirits
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep. Just last week. Uh-huh. And texting you in the middle of the night, dear, what is this?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I was like, it's okay, just command your space, set up your light field, talk about love, like you'll be
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so amazing, but it really does. When I did reflect back on that, it really is it's a mirror reflection of your power, and what you're really connected to, and how energetic, how much you're connected into the non-physical realms that exist. So it's a good sign. But now, when people do awaken to their abilities or connections, then they have to step into a higher level of responsibility with themselves and their environment, because it's not just non-physical energies like that. It can be literal people that are around you, and their energy can bleed off onto you, so we have to take more responsibility for that too.
Yes.
Hmm.
I am learning. I am learning about it.
Well, let's dig in. I mean, I love that we just talked about that, though. That was, I think, good for
Me
people
too.
to hear. And let's dig in. Why did you want a past life regression? Because I think at that time you didn't really even, not necessarily have an awareness of it, or it wasn't something in your field. And then you asked about having one.
Yes, because I had known about it. I had heard people talking about it, and you in particular talking about it on Clubhouse for about a year at least, probably before, at least a year before I brought it up to you. And for me, I was very skeptical, but not in a, it's weird, not in a judgment place, but in a place of, I was always taught, because I grew up very, very religious, that these things are all no things. All of this is, it is not of God, and all these things, so I was taught that all these things were, no, you don't even get into that. You don't even cross into that. And so as an adult, and I'm making my own decisions and I'm making my own things, and very much still believing in God. So I think part of that too was, okay, yeah, does this feel good? But there was nothing about it that felt negative. There was nothing, and that's why I sat with it for probably over a year of listening to people's stories doing this and how it affected them. And so honestly, it was through a lot of people too who you had worked with, who were saying all these incredible things that also is helping them in their current life, in their situations, overcome a lot of fears. And I was in a place in my life last year where the depression was hitting pretty hard, and I couldn't tell you why, but it just felt like I was just stuck in this cycle of a pity party for myself of all the bad things that had happened in my life. And I was ready to try anything to get out of it. And that was something where, well, also I tried a lot of things, done a lot of different things that, some things are good things, some things are bad things, but this was just something that it just kept tugging at me to do this with you. And I'm sure you hear this from people. It's like this weird, like, "Ah, maybe I should just try it," but I had no idea what to expect. And it was so wild. It was such a wild, wonderful experience. So that's how I got there.
And you're right, it is a wild experience. And yours particularly had so many different aspects of it and experiences that, as I said, I'm going to let you talk about what you want to talk about from the regression or what memories and lives came forward for you. But there was stuff that came for you right off the bat that the general person would not see or experience that I actually knew because after doing all of these, I tend to tune into what the person is seeing or what the energies are. And when you describe certain images, I'm like, I know what that is. But it's wild because she wouldn't know what that is. And so as you're saying all of that, this describing the scene, I'm like, this is crazy. This is like the stories that we hear about, but that are not brought forward. So, um, and again, that is because you have specific connections to information and lifetimes that go way far beyond what some people need to see in this lifetime. Really showing you your dynamism of connection to different lifetimes, different eras, and information that wants to come through now. So it was pretty wild, and that's why I'm so excited that you agreed to do this is because you had some things that people are really going to think are really cool, really wild, but they're also going to learn so much from you because when you do speaking and you share your story, and we've done music together on different stages for the high
Mm-hmm.
school and like the story and what you bring and how it transforms people is so beautiful. And so this just only seemed when the memories came forward for you, it just seems so right that you would have such deep connection to these powerful energies. So I'm glad you're here to talk about it. So that said, what is a life that you would like to share with us? That you can share multiple, but like what is it that comes forward for you first that you would like to share with us?
Well, on my plane rides this morning, I did it again a couple weeks ago, but I listened to it again. I listened to the session again this morning, and it was so wild the things that I didn't remember, but almost before I was saying them and listening to myself saying them on the recording, I was like, I think I said this. And sure enough, I did almost word for word, and it just kind of affirmed for me, whoa, okay, so this is something that's real. Because also, I think the biggest thing was it was so wild being able to just jump right into it and immediately see something, immediately see this scene that was just so vivid and still very vivid in my mind. And sometimes I'll dream about it. Um, the life in the forest, and still almost. And I think this is okay to say too, but sometimes it's weird to use some of these words and things of past lives because I'm still getting used to and almost accepting myself that this happened and existed. But I'll get to why I'm like, okay, there are just too many coincidences where I didn't just make this up in my head because I have an excellent imagination, because that was a concern of mine. I was like, well, I'm a very imaginative person. What if I'm just like, I don't know, in this state, but I'm just, you know, talking out of my butt or whatever. I don't know. I've never done any sort of meditative thing like this before. So I had no idea what to expect. And so going right into it was incredible. And the only thing I'll say, about that first life was, um, it was wild hearing you afterwards tell me Jess, you were describing exact, beings that were around it. I know the Bible, and I am just starting to learn about, you know, God in a much larger sense, and just different things. And so a lot of these things I had no idea about, and you were telling me, I was just describing them word for word, and it was like I again, there's just no way I'd know about these ancient creatures or whatever. So that was pretty affirming for me to begin with right off the
And even for me, like these experiences with people when they start saying stories that I hear about or I read about or I hear through other channelers or experiences, then when you come in and explain this like something you have no idea about, it literally affirms these experiences and that what kind of information people are bringing forward. And it makes me trust the information more as well. Because just because I do this stuff and I take people in past lives or I see and have my own experiences doesn't mean that I don't question what's going on
Mm.
and whether or not I create it either. Because we can think, oh, we are creative people and we aren't like we could be making this up. But once you listen to the recording and you listen to your voice, you listen to how you were speaking, you think about like, how could I see all of those very detail oriented things that come together to just, it's like, how can you make this up? All at once.
Exactly.
It's indescribable, and you can only really go through the experience to understand what is really going on. And it's really an experiential kind of thing to move through.
Yes, and the fact that too, I think it was four in that session that I saw, and that they spanned lifetimes. I mean extreme lifetimes, and and the one I'll just briefly touch on before the one that I really want to talk about is, one was related to music, and that was so moving for me and very emotional for me, and even to listen to how emotional I was talking about it on the recording, and then to hear that again, uh, very affirming for the lives that came forward that are helping me right now. Where it was like, wow, Jess, you're a part of something much bigger than yourself when you're creating music. Um, you are much more connected to people and just everything around you than you realize. Much more connected to music than you realize. And so that was very, again, all this was just very affirming. It did not feel evil. It did not feel, I didn't feel anxious. There was no negative feelings except for, wow, this is why I have that really irrational fear. This is why, and so I think that's why the last life I saw before waking up was just so vivid, so clear, and it was almost like it was knocking the whole time I was under. Like, I'm like, all right, and it was funny, even in the recording, I was trying to resist that it was real. And you can hear me not even wanting to tell you what I'm seeing because I'm like, I have to, like, this can't be right. Um, but so my most recent that I saw with you was I was on the Titanic, and I just thought, again, there's no way this is real. I'm just like inserting myself in there. But it made so much sense why in this life, I mean, in junior high, um, I just had an obsession with Titanic when I was a kid. Some things in my life happened with people, involved in that film. Um, so many connections with Titanic in so many ways in this life. And also my super irrational fear of, maybe it's not so irrational, but of deep water and oceans. It's a no-no for me. You will never see me on a cruise ever. You would have to pay me $1 million. So I didn't know why though. I just had these really, really strong fears. And um, in a near drowning incident too when I was in junior high. And just so many things that matched up. And when you talked me through this life, and I was a man, I was a boxer, and I could see the childhood, early fights, and then being on the ship, and how I passed away as well, and was able to tell you so many things about this man. So just for the fun of it, I Googled him to see if he existed. He existed. I and I that so that to me was like, are you kidding me? There's what? I it still shocks me because there's still also the part of me that's like, Jess, or like the Jess that grew up in the church, is still like, hey, but no, I cannot. It's like, you just can't. There's how on earth? It's like this very obscure. There were a couple of boxers, and the other boxer that was on the ship, they were friends, they were best friends. like brothers, and that's exactly who I described with me on this ship. And the whole scenario of us, and how the brother made it out, all these things. It was literally all in a couple of different articles that I Googled and researched. And I just, after the session, and it just blew my mind. And that's what solidified for me, okay, so this is a thing. And I think I need to really explore this and learn about this, because this is pretty incredible how you can see so much of that and realize that's a part of me, and that's it's a part of why I've brought some of those fears and worries and concerns into this lifetime. And because they don't need to keep kind of the bad things don't need to keep bleeding over. And so that was pretty incredible to me. The last one, that I don't want to say sold me, because that's that seems like it's undermining the process. It solidified, it affirmed again. It's like this is the source of a lot of things that are going on
Yeah.
in my life. And it's literally, here it is, just putting it on a plate for me to address it.
And that's also like when you got to see that towards the last life that you saw, it was at this point where you were getting deeper and deeper and deeper within the meditation. Because when people think of it, they're like, well, there is a little fear around it. They don't know what's going on. And it's like a deep meditation. And the more that you just allow and relax, the deeper you go and the clearer the visions become. And you start seeing people think that of psychics or clairvoyance, but it's almost like bigger than that. It's like putting on virtual reality goggles, but they're your own eyes and mind, and like your own. It's like crazy. It's like
Yes.
it's not even pictures, it's not flash images. It's like you're going through the experience and can see it because you're far enough, your conscious mind is far enough out of the way to go through those experiences. So I love that you got to see that towards the end that really allowed you to like have a grip on the fact that this was something that was more solidified. And then also the whole thing started off with like the parents dying or something, right? The parents died, and then you were like selling newspapers or something with your brother on the street as a little boy. So the thing is, when you talk about you were on the Titanic, that's not how it started. We had no idea that's where it was going to go. So it wasn't like all of a sudden you're on a ship and it's like, oh, this is the Titanic. It was like it's like, no, we're going to show you that you're not making this up because your parents die. You're a little boy selling newspapers with your brother. Next memories, you're grown up and you fight your boxing. We didn't know where that was going. We just knew that
Not a clue.
you were like now a fighter, and we didn't know that you were doing it because I said, well, what are you doing it for? I said, what, like, I don't remember the right words, but like I asked you why, what is it, what's the point of this? Because I know that there was a point if that was happening. And then you said to win tickets or something, right?
Yeah, it was some sort of, I guess they had like some sort of actual boxing competition on the Titanic. Some sort of something, some sort of, um, and you could win. But I feel like I remember in that vision that I saw, we were in fights to get tickets to get on the ship. And but when that moment clicked for me, when you asked me in the in the recording, I stopped. And I stopped responding to you because I was fighting it so hard. I was like, no way. No, I'm just doing this because I was obsessed with it when I was a kid. And then all of a sudden something just kind of clicked with me, that it was like, this is why you were weirdly obsessed with the Titanic as a kid, because it's a very recent experience for you. Uh, and again, it still even feels wild saying that out loud too. But yeah, so that was also very, very interesting how I was able to describe this whole life leading up to it, and then didn't even realize, until I'm looking at the ship and the vision. Oh my gosh, here I am on a very, very famous ship. So
So what was your fate on that ship? Will you tell us a little bit about what happened?
I didn't make it.
It was one of those ones that did not get on the plank of wood that floated.
I didn't. Didn't
No.
even have a chance to fight her on that door. Yeah. Um, so I just remember passing still in my bunk under the ship. It was something that happened very fast in the middle of the night, and so me and the group I was with was trapped below, and I just saw it so clearly and felt it, and the experience of that, because also it was weird. You kind of lightly feel as you're under your experiences in this life, in those different lifetimes. And so that one, the way that I let go and kind of accepted my fate in that life is very similar to how I did it. And I couldn't explain why, when I was, I don't know, seventh or eighth grade, I had this experience, and I stopped fighting underwater, and I just looked up at the sun, and it was very, very similar to, obviously a friend saved me. So that's why I'm still here. But very similar, very, very similar to uh, how it happened, in the Titanic lifetime. And um, so again, just all these things that just make sense, that just line up for me. But also, it was a very curious thing to be like, well, why this one? Why is this one such a main part of my current life? Um, but at the same time, even looking at the other ones, there's bits sprinkled in as like, okay, why do I feel so attached to this or this kind of music, or um, you know, that kind of whatever, that country. Like there was a country, and it's like, why did I just absolutely love going to St. Petersburg, Russia? And I, had such a wonderful time 10 years ago, and I was able to go and tour there. Um, well, I should say, in St. Petersburg, just because the architecture and everything was stunning, but just feeling drawn to things. Um, it's a very wild experience when you go near artifacts or buildings or something that you just feel very, very drawn to. And you have this connection with that you can't quite explain. And for someone like me who just doesn't really know anything much except for the little bit that I am trying to learn, from this last year, uh, you can't make up the physical pull that you feel towards these things. And so I'm just still learning what that means, what it's about.
So when it comes to, I want to talk a little bit about music because you mentioned the lifetime also where you got to understand this deeper connection to music and sound. How do you think, like, what do you think seeing something like that or a memory of understanding where you get this connection to sound and frequency and music, where do you think that it comes from? What do you think it's meant to show you, and how are you using that knowledge at this time?
Oh, I think it was just what I needed to see at that point in my life too, because I had left and quit music for 2 years and had just moved back to LA, a couple months before, and really dove right back into the industry. But it was very difficult. And when you go from being a ghostwriter to then coming back and saying, okay, I've written a lot of people, a lot of hit songs. I would like to have my name now and proper percentages on things. And I think everyone for that time as a ghostwriter, I will keep that positive. Um, but I was like, okay, but from here on moving forward, my name's going to be on this, because it was a matter of worth for me, and knowing my worth. And the people that I used to work with didn't quite care for that. And so I had a lot of insecurity also taking a couple of years off. And I had, let a situation really dictate my career and my future for 2 years. And so coming back into it, I had a lot of insecurity about, can I still do this? Can I still write hit songs? Can I still produce hit records? Do I have what it takes? Because my big dream, which I will accomplish, is I'm going to win Producer of the Year at the Grammys. It's going to happen one day. But um, just feeling that insecurity of, can I still do this? Do I still have the touch, or did I lose it? Or, just all this doubt. And so that life where uh, wasn't human. Also, that was a nice little curveball. Didn't know you could see things that aren't human, because you say, like, mentioning looking down, and I look down at my hand and I'm like, I have 3 fingers and they are not human looking, and I'm describing them to you, and I think I was laughing a little bit in the audio too. Like, this is what is this? And just, that was such a beautiful life to see too. It was so, I had this partner, this, like, who was like a soulmate, who was my love, but it was deeper than that. It wasn't lustful. It was respectful. It was beautiful. It was my person. It was just, well, of course, it wasn't an actual person, but just like my soulmate. And it was so beautiful and pure and wonderful. And here we were, um, they had, one function, but I had another, and we were creating sound waves. And it was the wildest thing to see, um, in some galactic thing. And it was, so it just felt like, to me, it didn't feel like a me thing. It felt like, see, like, you have been a part of this beautiful thing for who knows how long. um, but just really reiterating the music inside my spirit and my soul. um, and then it makes sense to me, all the songs that I've written, everything that I've done, how it feels like it's not just me. And I, obviously I work with so many other incredibly talented songwriters, producers, mixing engineers, mastering engineers, on records. But it just connected me, and really, again, I'm saying this word 500 times, really affirmed for me. Okay, this is what you were created, part of what you were created to do. But it's a very big part of your life, very big part of your purpose. And I've always felt that since I was a kid, and that has never deviated. I've never, you know, I've always been, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do music. There was no backup plan. I tried. There were times when I was like, I want to try this or prove my worth to other people or something, but music was always there.
Hmm.
Even if it was just an outlet, it was always there. So that was very important and meaningful for me to see that life and just feel connected to something much larger than myself.
Yeah, I think that when you step back from the human version of you, meaning just the Jess version of you, and you were to step back and look at it as, even if you're watching a movie or something, and you could see a part of yourself that it's part of a grander design, that that there's a deeper reason why you have a connection to bringing why music is natural and innate within you. I think it does ground this kind of power within us, if whatever that thing is for people. If it's music, if it's acting, if it's art, or it's not art, it could be anything. Whatever it is, and they can see that in other realms or realities or past lifetimes in this linear earth, that they were doing something similar, that it's their soul signature. They can trust in their power more, what they're doing more. It gives that extra push and motivation to continue on the journey and recognize that the process is the experience, not just the end result, you know? So I love that. I love that these experiences have infused you with more consciousness expansion, have
Yes.
infused you with abilities of assisting you in more connections to the universe that you have, and pulling that in for what you will create from this moment and this moment and this moment on. And I think that's just absolutely beautiful and incredible. So yeah, I love that we talked about that and you got to share that.
Yes, and thank you, because without you, I wouldn't have been able to start this journey and to be able to do that. And again, it's been, I'm still growing and learning about it every day, and I still want to learn more. And you have to fight the urge to be lazy about it. But because the more I learn about it, yes, it does open things up, kind of like you talked about at the beginning. All of a sudden, I'm seeing things that I used to see when I was a kid, but I shoved
Mm.
down, and tried to pretend like the things around me don't exist, and now that's opening back up and accepting that, and accepting part of it is accepting responsibility of also certain dreams and things that I'll have, and prompts that I'll feel to talk to people or to tell someone, hey, or warn someone about something. It's very bizarre and it feels very uncomfortable to message people when you feel prompted, but again, it's I don't know, it's something that is, there's a purity and a conviction to it, and that's what makes me trust it. That's what makes me, you know, just really feel like, okay, I'm learning from this, and I'm going to, kick some sweet little booty in this lifetime. You know what I'm saying? So,
I do know what you're saying, and I do believe you are doing it, and I do believe you will continue doing it, because the more that you recognize and acknowledge your own power, the more that opens up for you, and the more that comes in, and then the more you have, more energy you have to back you up. And again, I've said this to you before, it really is about being willing to receive more love because that's what it really all is. And when we talk about God and the expansiveness of God, God is all that is. So God
yes.
and spirit is within all things that are created. If you want to look
Yes.
at the breakdown and you look at the all that is, which is God, the in in physics and modern science they call it the unified field. Whatever people want to call it, they can. The grand architect, the design, and then gave birth to the cosmos, and then we are in that. So we have God energy, source energy, spirit energy, whatever it is that people want to call it, flowing through us as us, and everything is God. And the more that we open our awareness, the more we get to experience the beauty that is God. Because that word beauty and the essence of beauty is truly the energy of what God is. So it's such an incredible experience, and it's a layering, it's an unfolding. It's a
Yes.
layering, it's an unfolding that will continue to unfold for you and bloom and blossom. Think of a rose. It's going to continue to open up, and it continues to do so unless we constrict it, unless we choose not to, which, you know what, is also okay. Just depends on what you want.
Well
So,
said.
yep. Is there anything else that you would like to share about your experience? Anything that comes forward for you, or a message that you have for people before we depart today?
Well, I think the cherry on top of that whole experience, which thinking about it too, it's like, oh man, I'd love to do it again and just not let this go, but continue in this. And especially now going through some health things, it's like I think there's a lot more that I can explore here. And the one thing that has been a little joyous thing that just keeps happening after having had this last June with you was I just keep different friends in this lifetime, or people, when I talk about, oh, I did this with you. I mean, I did a past life regression and talking about my experience, and someone will talk to me about, oh, I did that, and bring up one of their past lives, and it correlates with mine. And that is the wildest with one of mine. It's the wildest experience when you realize, oh, I think these people are in my life for a reason, and somehow we're all finding each other. And for someone who for a long time really liked to self isolate, and especially when things were tough, just really liked pushing everyone away, uh, this really just brought me back to people and made me feel like, oh my goodness, even if I try to be by myself, or anything, like I'm not. I am so deeply connected to people around me and the people that are in my life, especially right now. Gosh, I just have so many incredible friends. And so it's just cool to learn about these things and how you may or may not have been connected with people in previous lives. It's very interesting, a whole brand new world for me. Um, very, very different from what I grew up believing. So I love it. And that's the cherry on top. That's just, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So that's a big thing that I learned from this. But my, my other takeaway that I would say to people listening to this is to give it a shot. Because even someone who is very much a skeptic, grew up very religious, but still, I mean, again, still very much believe in God, still very much have faith in things that are not seen. And but again, that has just expanded. There's a whole world out there. Uh, a lot of things that we maybe didn't know growing up like that, and so it's okay to explore, and it's okay to check these things out. And again, I think you'll be surprised at how beautiful and peaceful you will feel, and how comforted you will feel going through and trying an experience like this.
That was beautiful. That is how we will take it home today. That's an amazing message for everybody. And it's the epitome of faith and trust. And so I love you. I thank you. I'm so glad that we have reconnected in this lifetime, from even connections in some of those lifetimes that came forward for you. Um, and it's just so magical. And I'm glad that you shared your story today with everyone who will listen. So, you have a wonderful day, a wonderful time. And thank you, everybody, for listening to Jess Hoover and me talk about past lives.
Yes, thank you, Derek. You are wonderful. I love you, and thank you, everyone. Check Derek out, please.